We're joined by senior producer from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, who's also co-host of ESPN's NFL Matchup Show, to talk Bills Seahawks. Greg Cosell's weekly segment presented by Scott Lawnyard, an official commercial site work partner of the Buffalo Bills. All right, Greg, a noticeable uptick in the passing game for Buffalo last week against the Titans. 258 passing yards in the second half is the most ever by Josh Allen in the second half of a football game, which almost seems hard to believe. Threw a little more on first down in the second half because this is a team that has run it over 60% of the time on 1st and 10 this season, second highest in the league. But they're facing a Seattle team, Greg, that is 28th against the run and last in first down defense. Should they continue with the trend of throwing a little bit more on first down, do you think?
Well, those questions are always hard to answer, as to what they should do against a given team. But I will say this. One thing we know about Seattle is they play a lot of zone coverage. They're a more predominant zone coverage defense than they are a man coverage defense. And I think what I really liked in the second half that they did against Tennessee, and this is, I think, the essence of building a passing game versus zone coverage, is it's really all about spacing and route combinations. People don't think about a football field as confined space the way they think about, let's say, a basketball court or a hockey rink, because you can see the entire court or rink on TV. You can't see the entire football field on TV. So you don't think of it in terms of confined space. But, and Steve, you know this very well, obviously, being a former receiver, is that the pass game versus zone is all about getting into voids, putting defenders in conflict. It's finding space and balance with the routes. And I thought they did a much better job of that in the second half. I mean, I thought a really good example of that was the Cooper 27-yarder, which came in the second half. That was against zone coverage. If you look at the full field combination, they had a vertical concept, an intermediate concept, a short concept. They did a really good job with their spacing. Because what you really need to do with Josh is you need to define it for him within timing, because otherwise he's going to leave the pocket. That's just the kind of quarterback he is. And obviously we know he's great leaving the pocket, but every coach would like to see the pass game executed as structured. And so you really need to try to define it with him against zone coverage so that when he hits that back foot, he feels like he sees it and he can turn it loose.
I know it's early, and Amari Cooper's got one game under his belt as a Bill, but can you, or are you looking to draw any conclusions about how he changes things?
It's like you said, it's hard to say after one game, but he is a boundary X, and we talked about this I think last week before the game, that you can line him up at X, and then you have three receivers on the other side, and he is a receiver that can win individual routes. As an X receiver. So theoretically, that can change your offense. Obviously, we're looking at the touchdown that came against 0 last week, where I guess he had to be told to play, but it was 0, and that was pretty basic concept. But yeah, so theoretically, can he change their offense in that regard? For sure. Ideally, that helps other receivers as well. I mean, I really like Shakir. He really provides sort of that short to intermediate route runner. He's really good run after catch. So, I think now they have more dimensions in their pass game.
Right, and to take it a step further, Coleman seems to be growing each and every week in terms of what he's able to provide this team as well. And now, arguably, he's going to get more advantageous matchups with Cooper presumably drawing, the best defender every week. So what do you kind of see in front of him in terms of growth and opportunity?
Well, I think it gives them a lot more versatility in what they can do from a receiver location perspective. And by that, I mean, Coleman, I think, was drafted to become a boundary X. But now you have Cooper, Coleman, Shakir can line up anywhere. I think you're in a situation now where you have guys that can line up in multiple locations within a formation, whether it's a 3-by-1 set, whether it's a 2-by-2 set. And let's not forget Kincaid. He's another guy that can line up anywhere within the formation. So I think it gives you, and it may not happen this week because it takes a little time when you get a new receiver in like Cooper, even though he's been in the league a while and probably nothing's brand new to him. Still, he's with a new team. Just things are a little different, but I think they have you could argue they have 4 receivers now that could line up anywhere.
What do you think? And I know it's hard to say because once again Cooper's just been here for a week. What do you think now is the most effective personnel package offensively for Buffalo?
Well, I guess I'd answer that by saying you don't want to feel like you're stuck with doing one thing. I mean, they still have 2 really good tight ends. You know, I'd be real curious if now with Cooper, this cuts down on the deployment of 6 O-line personnel, which they were using quite a bit. I think they've used it more than any other team in the league. We'll see how they feel about that going forward now that they have Cooper, and gives them many more viable options when they go to 3 wide. But I think good offenses can do a lot of different things, Steve. You know that. I mean, so I don't know if they're going to feel that they have to be specific to one. I mean, you look at a team like they're playing Seattle, I think they're over 85% 11 personnel. I don't think the Bills want to be in a situation where they're that heavy percentage-wise with one particular personnel package.
All right, so let's talk about Seattle's offense a little bit more because right now Geno Smith is leading the league in passing, and it's because this team throws more than anybody else in the league. If you count the 20 times Geno Smith has been sacked, the Seahawks have attempted to throw 300 times this season, and they've run it 151 times. It is a 2-to-1 ratio, and they throw it 66% of the time. And it doesn't look like it's going to slow down anytime soon. But Kenneth Walker is a really good back. Greg, you got to explain this one to me. Can they not run block? What is the propensity to throw it so much?
Well, there have been games, Brownie, where they have tried to run the ball. They have come out committed to running. They tried that a few weeks ago against the 49ers after they literally had no run game the week prior. I forget who that was against. And they simply have not been able to generate any kind of run game. And I agree with you. Kenneth Walker is a talented back, but he's just found no space. So what happens with a lot of coordinators, obviously, and they have a rookie offensive coordinator in the NFL, and Ryan Grubb did a great job at the University of Washington, but the NFL is a different game. They get impatient and they give up on the run and they throw and they throw and they throw. And Geno Smith has developed into a pretty good quarterback in this league. The question becomes protection. Right now, they've got issues at right tackle. Last week, they played a kid. I don't know if it's pronounced Gerald or Jarrell, but he's a kid from Findlay College. He's about their 5th right tackle, Brownie, as you probably know from researching. So you're going to, do the game and play by play, so you know who he is. But and they still kind of rotate a little bit at right guard. They play Bradford about 75% of the snaps, and the rookie Haynes at right guard about 25% of the snaps. So the right side of their line is potentially problematic. And after you watched what Rousseau did this week to Petit Frere, you have to figure that if you're the Seahawks, you're a little bit worried about the right side there.
Yeah, so as you get into that, what certainly the Bills would love to get quick pressure with just 4 guys. What have the Seahawks struggled with in their pass protection? Because they're not rotating that right guard for nothing. They never wanted to get down to a Findlay College graduate at right tackle. I mean, what has been? They keep throwing the football. They're leading the league, so something's going okay for them up front.
Well, I think we've seen significant improvement in Geno Smith in one particular area, and it's really good. Geno's become a really good player. He's making strong throws from muddied and squeezed pockets. He's standing in there and delivering the football. And the other thing that he's gotten much better at is pocket movement, the ability to move within the pocket and keep his eyes downfield, almost be oblivious to the pressure in a good way, but be able to move, maintain control of the football with 2 hands, eyes downfield, see things. So he's gotten better in those 2 critical areas, which help an offensive line. But there's no question that particularly the right side, and again, I don't know if it's going to be Jarrell again this week. I think they actually have Jason Peters on the roster. I don't know if they'd feel.
Yes,
that
he's on their practice squad. They'd have to elevate him, and we're anticipating they're going to elevate somebody because right now they just put Stone Forsythe on injured reserve yesterday, so they only have 2 tackles on the active roster right now, so they've got to
I know.
elevate somebody.
They don't have anybody that if one of those guys got hurt right as we speak on a Friday afternoon, they don't have another tackle they could line up and play.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So someone's going to be elevated. Maybe it's Jason Peters,
Yeah, it could be.
The point is that is clearly an area that has to be exploited. And as I said, I mean, look, you guys saw the tape, Brownie. You do the game, so you know. Russo just dominated Petit Frere on 5 or 6 snaps where he just made him look silly. Only one might have led to a sack, but there were others where it really looked bad for Petit Frere. Russo looked really good.
So this game rolls in, and the Bills, like you said, you got to make a choice when you're facing the Seattle defense. Where is the strength of this Seattle defense? I mean, we just talked about statistically they're struggling, but what do they hang their hat on?
Well, I'll answer it this way. They're going to get better. Now, you hope this isn't the week that all of a sudden it comes together. I don't know what the status is of their outside corners, Brownie. Do you know who practiced this week or who did?
Well, yeah, I mean, Reek Willens missed the last 2 games, as you've probably seen on tape.
Sure.
But he already started. He's practicing on a limited basis this week. Trey Brown has not practiced yet. We'll see what today holds for him. And then on the other side, they look to be okay defensively with Witherspoon. But Pritchett had to play last week.
Well, yeah, what they did last week, as you well know, is because they played a team in the Falcons that plays the highest percentage of 11 personnel in the league, 90%. They were playing in their nickel literally the whole game. So they had free agent Josh Jobe from Alabama at one corner, the rookie Pritchett from Auburn at the other corner, and Witherspoon in the slot. So we started this conversation, and Steve, you mentioned about what should the Bills do as far as their personnel packages. If that's, again, the group that plays, Joe Pritchett on the outside, you might want to think about maybe increasing your percentage this week of playing with 11 personnel and see what Jobe and Pritchett can do. I thought both guys actually played pretty well last week overall, but still, one's a rookie, one's a free agent.
And then there's a very good chance they may start a guy they just traded for in Ernest Jones, who the Bills just saw last week when they played Tennessee.
They will start him because Baker's gone.
Yeah, so he drops right in there, and I realize there's probably a healthy amount of crossover knowing Denard Wilson also comes from the Baltimore tree as defensive coordinator in Tennessee. So there's conceivably some measure of crossover and carryover for Jones as he gets dropped into this defense with Seattle, but he's also got a playoff of 10 new guys in the scope of this defense. I mean, what do you see in terms of the transition for him?
That's a hard question to answer other than I loved him as a player. I remember doing him coming out of South Carolina. He's big, he's athletic, he's actually a terrific blitzer. So I don't know if that's the way McDonald sees him. He may not be used that way this week. That may be the kind of thing they have to build up to. But I would expect this defense overall with McDonald there to get better as the season progresses. But the problem, of course, is when you start to get guys hurt, as we talked about the corners, now you've got a new linebacker in Jones. Then they traded last week for Robertson Harris, who's actually a pretty good player. But, so they do have a pretty good D-line. Some of these guys have come along really well. The second-year player Hall from Auburn, another Auburn kid, has really come along and played well for them as an edge player. We know Leonard Williams on the inside is a tough deal. Murphy's now back, the rookie from Texas. He's got explosive traits. So on the front's not bad at all. It's just what are they going to do on the back end? Because even the safety Jenkins, he's out too, right?
Yeah, on IR.
Yeah. So, they're missing some key pieces on the back end. So that getting back to what Steve said, this may be a week for 11 personnel where you feel as long as you can protect on your side, you may feel that you can really attack them with the pass game.
Brownie and I, it's been me, and Brownie has not dissuaded me in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes we're too close to this, you're right, this Bills team, so we kind of need to get somebody else's view of it. It's been my assertion that the Bills are 5-2, playing, they're winning games, no problem, but they have really not played nearly their best football. And it seems as though now with Cooper in the mix, Keon Coleman flashing like he did this last week,
right.
Shakir getting back on the field, Kincaid making the catches he made, even though he had 6 targets and only 3 catches, which is unusual for him. Usually he'll catch 5 of the 6 targets. But this is a team, especially on the offensive skills positions with all the new guys coming, that they do seem to be growing a little bit, getting a little better. Josh is playing a little better. He still has not thrown an interception, all this stuff. And I still think, while they have not played their best football yet, they are on a trajectory to be really good at the end of this regular season.
And I would agree with everything you said. Despite the fact that Josh Allen's not thrown a pick, because of course everybody said he's a turnover machine and he hasn't thrown a pick. I don't think he's played great football on a consistent basis. I think he's had moments. Now, I don't know if it's because new receivers, it's one thing to go through OTAs and training camp. You guys know until you get in the games, it's just, Hollins is a new receiver. Coleman's a rookie. Shakir sort of became a factor last year, but he's still relatively new. So, Josh is the kind of quarterback that if he's not comfortable with what he immediately sees, he gets out of there. And as good as that is, Steve, that disrupts your passing game. That's just the reality of life. If your quarterback, ultimately the way passing games are taught is execution within timing and structure. And Josh is going to get out of there if he's not comfortable right away. So your point's a good one. Maybe as he gets more comfortable and they can build with more concepts in the pass game, that he'll stay there more. Because I remember, you go back, when he first became, in a sense, Josh Allen, I guess it was year kind of 3 where, he really took off. Yes, did he make plays outside of structure? For sure. But he made big time every single week.
Yeah, and that's still his highest completion percentage season at just over 69%. Greg, thanks as always for the time. We appreciate it. Enjoy the game. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.